1:39. Well, Mengistu runs for the Commercial Bank of Ethiopia club. Started running 6 years ago in the Amhara region, which is producing more and more great runners now. Most of the big names like Gebre Selassie and Kenenisa Bekele and Daraotu Tulu come from the Arsi region, but Amhara becoming another major force. 1:85 there in that orange strip. Saife Ture runs for the Muga Cement team, rather like the Japanese top athletes, many of them sponsored by commercial organizations. These Ethiopian athletes just enables them to improve their diet and their training options. 2:10. That's Bekele, former winner, very accomplished racer in the blue there to the right of picture. He's run a couple of half marathons this year, 4th in Paris and 2nd in a race in the Czech Republic. When he won 4 years ago, he won by just 1 second, did Bekele, but at the moment, impossible to call.
When Kenyan distance runner Edna Kiplagat is surrounded by Ethiopians, it's usually towards the end of a big city or major championship marathon. And after more than a decade of intense rivalry with her East African neighbours, she's made the journey to the other side of the Rift Valley for the first time. And her visit here has given her an opportunity to reflect on an incredible 18 months in the sport. The Great Scottish Run in Glasgow in October rounded off another amazing year for Kenyan runner Edna Kiplagat.
Have a look at the clock as she closes in on the finish to take the 2014 Great Scottish Run title. Edna Kiplagat then wins it, and really wins it so well.
The mother of 5 added the Glasgow win to the Marathon World Championship she retained last year in Moscow and the London Marathon title, which she finally secured in April this year. Plenty to reflect on then here in Addis Ababa, where she's one of the Great Ethiopian Run's guests of honour. So this is your first time to Ethiopia?
Yes.
Okay, well, I know you've got a lot of appointments over this next few days, so this is a typical Addis taxi, so we'll see if we can show you some of the sights.
Thank you.
So we're coming up to Meskel Square now, which is the heartbeat of Addis Ababa. They're putting in a brand new tram system so that the whole of the city is accessible for those who haven't got cars. Are you surprised at how much development you're seeing here in Ethiopia?
Yes, I am surprised because I'm seeing they are constructing the railway. So if there is good transportation, there is good development in the city, everything is going to be faster, which is good for the economy.
You've had some brilliant victories in Britain this year.
London has been a very good place for me because that's where also I ran my PB in marathon of 2:19:50. So I can say maybe there is something good there.
In Beijing next year, Edna will try to retain for a second time her Marathon World Championship title, but to do so she'll need to stay ahead of her rivals from right here in Ethiopia. Over the years there's been such an intense rivalry between the two countries who've dominated distance running for decades, but is there respect between the two nations' athletes as well as the rivalry?
Sports has bring the two nations together. So sometimes Kenyan athletes win, sometimes Ethiopian athletes win, but we have become friends because we always meet in several races, so we know each other.
Does it mean more when an Ethiopian is the one you beat to the gold?
Yeah, it means more because we always know Ethiopians are very strong athletes, they are great athletes, and so having that chance of winning a race when Ethiopian is there, it means a lot to you.
So thanks for sharing the taxi ride with us, and
you.
good luck going for the hat-trick in Beijing next year.
Thanks.
Fingers crossed. Well, at the front of the field, the battle for the 2 elite titles is well underway. Meanwhile, there are still thousands streaming across the start line at a slightly more leisurely pace. Join us after the break as the most colourful day of the year in Ethiopia continues. The final fun runners are streaming across the start line here in Addis Ababa, but up front the race for the elite titles is hotting up. Time to rejoin your commentator, Tim Hutchings.
And it's beginning to stretch out a little bit on the women's side. 12 minutes on the clock for them. They take this right-hand turn and head towards the 4-kilometre marker, so still a long way shy of 5k. 4:17. Well, this is Ashte Bekele, 26-year-old. She too has run 3 marathons this year, the most recent of them in October. That was when she was 3rd in Frankfurt in a personal best of 2:24. She's very strong, but marathons are unforgiving. You take weeks to recover from a marathon, and I wonder whether Bekele, their 4:17, will be able to stay out in front like this. 4:24 going with her, that's Ayele, the youngster. This is her first big race. Well, she did run in the domestic Coca-Cola race series just a couple of months ago, which she completed and ended up winning. Well, further back down the course, the field bathed in this glorious early morning sunshine, blue sky in the altitude of the Ethiopian capital. Looking at these pictures, it's very easy to forget that they're running through that thinner air, which makes distance running, indeed any endurance discipline, very trying indeed. 1:29 nearest the camera in the men's race is Bonsadida, 14th in the World Half Marathon Championships back in March. Very strong for a 19-year-old. He's run 2:12 for a marathon. That was in May this year. The pace is steady, just past halfway. Very soon they'll hit those hills, will this men's field. And that's when it'll sort out the men from the boys. It really will, almost quite literally. Downhill section, this, as you can see from that shot. Very quick running. But those who have done their homework on this course will be gathering themselves psychologically for those climbs. There we go, through 6 kilometers. The split there, well, that's 6 kilometers, about 17:23. Bekele then, glancing across at the camera, 3:94 coming to the frame now. Wude Ayalu, still only 27 years old, Ayalu there in the orange vest. Small, compact athlete, but tremendously experienced, probably more than anybody else in this field. Gudeta and Ayele are there as well. She was a World Championship bronze medalist at 10,000 meters back in Berlin in 2009, Ayalu. She does have some unfinished business at the marathon. She made a debut in Dubai earlier on this year, ran a very poor 2:57, poor by her standards. But she looks back in shape now. She's going with this aggressive running from Bekele out in front. Indeed, they're beginning to pick up some of the back markers from the men's elite field. I almost said mass field because it was a huge group. There were athletes coming to this race now from all over the world, including other parts of Africa and Europe. But the ladies approaching halfway. Well, the men continue to surge then. Just after 6 kilometers, they crossed the Adwa Bridge in this 14th edition of the Great Ethiopian Run. They went through 5 kilometers in 14:13, and this lead group has certainly whittled down from, what, about 50 strong to around 20, 25 runners, as the pace is pushed along by a variety of leaders. 2:02 there in this men's field. Glancing around, Fedaku Seboka, relatively inexperienced, ran a 62-minute half marathon back in May, so he's got plenty of strength. Number 1 there is Berhanu Legesse, the 20-year-old in the blue. Won the Coca-Cola series in the city back in 2012. The only time he's represented Ethiopia was at the African Championships this year over 5,000 meters when he finished in 8th place. 1:39. Right there on the shoulder of the leader is Mengistu. While the masses enjoying themselves, good crowd support as they make that sharp right-hand turn at the Diaspora roundabout just after 3 kilometers. And the ladies now with 18 minutes on the clock in single file, and it has whittled down pretty markedly. 4:32, doing the aggressive running, putting in the hard yards to try and break those behind her. Distance running is all about patience. You have to have the confidence that you're hurting those behind you, no matter how long they stay on your heels. But Gudeta it is, Netsune Gudeta, who's never raced on the track. She's an out-and-out road runner. Started running 4 years ago in Bikoji. On the Addis 10 kilometers earlier on just a couple of weeks ago in 33.24. They're on a downhill section now, still quick running for these ladies, but they are past halfway. And indeed it is Wure Ayalu in the orange there, who appears to be almost hanging on to this surge from Gudeta, and it is taking its toll. Look, the gaps are beginning to widen back there behind. Bekele having to let go. And now Ayalu easing onto the shoulder of Gudeta in the blue, the taller figure. 2-1-0. Asmaro Bekele. No man has ever won this race twice in the 13 previous editions. He won here in 2010. Can he regain the title this year? He's certainly looking strong and relaxed there in that blue kit to ride a picture. 2-8-0. That's Morange, Frederick Morange. Hasn't really shown himself to the front at all. 1-2-9. That, remember, is Bonsa Dida, who is very experienced. Has that 2:12 marathon in his legs from last May. And actually was fourth in the World Junior Cross Country back in 2011. He's been around and about on the roads and the country for some years. 1-3-9 to the extreme right of picture, that's Mengistu. He too very experienced with big races aplenty beyond Ethiopia's borders. But one sort of senses with 21 minutes on the clock that they have slowed a little bit now, as though they're gathering themselves, because that pack is what, 6 or 8 strong. Nobody's really pushing it hard to try and break it up just yet. They don't want to sacrifice themselves before they hit the big hills.
Taking part in this race requires a sense of fun and a spirit for adventure, and one British debutant has both qualities in abundance. In fact, since January this year, Dave Clark has been a man on a mission. Dave Clark's trip here to Ethiopia was set in motion when he realised no one had ever done all the greats, the series of runs, swims and the cycle of which the Great Ethiopian Run is part.
As soon as I emailed the Great Run guys and said, has anyone ever done all 17 in 1 year or every event in 1 year, and they said no, that was me sold. That's it, I knew that's what I was going to do, and it's for my family charity, so that's a big motive. When I found out no one had, that was it. I just had to do it.
And what is your family charity?
So it's called Edgar's Gift, because my stepbrother was called Ben Edkins, so he developed the nickname Edgar. And basically he passed away in 2010 to a really rare form of cancer. So what we now do is buy gifts and wishes for young cancer sufferers aged 18 to 30.
The charity has granted over 160 wishes now, including special visits to sporting events and, for one patient, a holiday to Spain.
It's crazy to think how it's really spreading out and the impact it has. It's great to see, and like you receive messages from the people afterwards saying how much they appreciated it and how good it was, and that's just what it's all about really. That's why you keep doing it.
So far, what's been the best event that you've done?
It's probably a bit cliched because it is, everyone would say it, but the Great North Run was unbelievable. It was absolutely superb, and I ran it dressed in a Banana Man morph suit as well. Turned out it was a red hot day, so it wasn't the best idea. And Manchester Run was actually really good as well, but the swims on the other hand, they were hard work.
Lake Windermere in June and the Great North Swim, the first of 5 swims Dave would have to do to complete his fundraising challenge.
The first 200 metres were the hardest mental challenge I've ever had, and then just after halfway round I got cramp in my legs. That was hard, and then once I got about 3/4 of the way, I was doing breaststroke just to get through, and my right arm wouldn't go any further than there. So my left arm was going all the way, but my right arm for some reason kept getting stuck. So I nearly went round in circles. That took me a lot longer to finish. But when I got out of the water, it was, I think, the biggest relief ever, I think. Couldn't really stand up too well. I had to be ushered that helped out of the water.
I was a bit apprehensive before today because I didn't know what to expect, because if you've never properly done one of the events, then you don't know how it's going to go. But yeah, enjoyed it. It's definitely made me look forward to the others more now and get a bit more practice in.
4 swims, several runs and a cycle later, and Dave is now just 1 event away from completing the series.
I've never been to anywhere in Africa before, but it's a fantastic place. I mean, the temperature and the altitude, I've not felt the altitude yet. I'm sure I'll feel it tomorrow and it will hit me very hard. But the place itself is fantastic. And when you walk around the streets and everyone's all chatty and friendly and just everyone seems to be having a good time. And yeah, I'm enjoying it, certainly enjoying it. And I can't wait for the run tomorrow.
Over the last decade, this race has helped to kickstart the international careers of numerous world record holders, world champions and Olympic gold medalists. Join us after the break to find out which 2 athletes will be adding their names to an illustrious list of winners. Welcome back to Addis Ababa for Africa's biggest road race. We are just moments away from finding out who will win this year's Great Ethiopian Run. So let's get straight back out to your race commentator, Tim Hutchings.
Well, lots of athletes coming back into the frame in the ladies' race. 4:24. Ayele, the youngster. At the moment, Ayalu in the orange there is just tucked in behind this pair. They've got male athletes with them who are seemingly wanting to stay with them, perhaps using these ladies as a gauge for their own tempo, maybe just not wanting to get beaten by any of these ladies. But you can see there, Ayele in the blue, working hard to try and break the other two ladies behind her. Beside her, the gentleman in blue nearest the camera glances across and says something there. She flaps her hand at him as if to say, no, go away, I don't need your company, thank you very much. She wants to do this on her own. She's focused, she's got to be hurting now. She's at about 2/3 distance, 22.5 minutes on the clock. She's got these regular targets to aim at, the back markers of the men's elite field. Yes. But right up at the other end of the men's elite field, this is the race for glory. To the unknown athletes who come out of the country, who have put in the months of hard running, this race represents a massive opportunity. Some of the established names in Ethiopian athletics still run this race each year simply because of its status now, the prestige associated with running well in this one. They take a sharp left-hand turn there after the last downhill section. They're at about 8.5 kilometers. They know they've got about 5 or 6 minutes of hard running to go. And we're down to 3. You can hear the roars of the masses on the other side of the road, because to their right, out of picture, behind this camera in effect, are the masses heading out at the beginning of their race, some of the other 39,000 runners. Well, 4:32, still doing the aggressive running. She's earned this. Wherever she comes, you hope she has a good run. She's had 3 good half marathons this year, has good data. And last year's winner knows the course, knows when to push, when to ease back, but she's put in so many of the hard leading jobs, kilometre after kilometre. Ayalu it is in the red, who again just tucks in behind her. Ayalu, by the way, the 11th fastest athlete in history at 10,000 metres. She's got a great track pedigree as this men's field begins to thin out. Head down there, grimacing and pushing hard is Bonsadida in the white vest, trying desperately to break the man behind him there, Bekele in the blue. Both of them now grimacing and leaning into this uphill section. 7,500 feet up. Indeed, the finish, by the way, is about 400 feet above the start line, so as if altitude wasn't enough to accommodate, they actually have a net gain of about 400 feet on this course. But we're down to 2 in the ladies' race. And Gudeta continues to push hard. She just cannot rid herself of Ayalu. She's a very, very tough and very experienced racer, Ayalu. She has fabulous personal bests. 8:30 for 3,000 metres, 30 minutes 11 for 10,000 metres. By the way, I said she's 11th fastest in history at 10,000. Globally, she's only the 7th fastest Ethiopian in history. That is the quality of Ethiopian distance running at depth. But these 2 are away now. They make one of the final turns there and head into the last 1.5 kilometres as Bekele hits the front and gets a little bit of daylight, or does he? Being pursued now by Mengistu, approaching Jan Meda, the big racecourse venue where the race finishes up above the city. Grassed area, they will run about the last 600 yards on grass. But Bekele cannot get that gap, cannot establish that gap. He is a 59-minute half marathon runner, he has enormous strength, and as I say that, so there's a surge from Mengistu. He's determined to lead through the gates and into Jan Meda, the finishing park. They're getting a little bit of instruction from the bikes and vehicles accompanying these athletes. Well, we're down to 2 in the men's race, and we're down to 2 in the women's race, and now a surge from Wude Ayalu, using all that racing now garnered over many, many years on cross-country races. She's been 5th twice in the World Cross-Country Championships, and on the roads as well, and on the track. She's the complete racer, this lady. She spent a little bit of time away from the sport, but coming back now with what looks like fabulous fitness. And I wonder if this is the prelude to an attack on a decent world-class marathon run from the 27-year-old. So our personal best is 31.07. That was in the USA 4 years ago. It was a national record then. We're not going to see quick times here today from the ladies or the men. And the men now onto the final section, onto the grass up at Jan Maeda. Not a perfect surface, a little bit sandy, a little bit rough in places. But this is the sprint on in effect. And they are so tired, these men. There is no real pumping of the arms and lifting of the knees. And indeed, Asmodor Bekele hits the front, and there's very little resistance indeed coming through from the second place of their Mengistu.